Welcome. In this video we're going to talk through some standard implementation of some of the additional 12 steps or 12 principles of animation. The straight ahead or pose to pose animation is not intended to be a cycling or a looping animation, although it can be. In this case we have a jump cycle that's been keyframed or established the extreme poses on this particular move. This, what I want you to see is the addition of the anticipation, the push of this animation. Now in game development, we need to have instant gratification on that controller, so oftentimes we don't see the anticipation of a move and the slow in of that move, and of course even some of the follow through, especially when you're talking about fighting moves, punches, kicks. They need to be absolutely out there to the extreme pose before you or instantly in the same keyframe. That would be your keyframe 1 or 2. Alright, so let me talk you through what's expected of the pose to pose or keyframe animation. Simply working ahead on your timeline, not necessarily keying out like we did the walk cycle, keying out the extreme poses, although that is a tendency of mine, is working forward one by one to get the timing that I want. For example, I know I need a nice strong anticipation of taking this character all the way down as far as I can go, and then pushed him up almost immediately into that really strong pose that's going to send him sailing up into the air. Now when I get to the hang point, I'm going to add a few more frames so he hangs into the air a little bit as he's recoiling from that dramatic push. It's recoiling right in here as he gets some hang time, and then he's stretching out into that final move where he's going to catch himself falling onto the floor and then push into that position and then back up into a standing pose. Okay, so this one has been worked from front to back, forward, as they say, pose to pose, and it can include more of the 12 principles of animation. So talk through those 12 one more time as we see them. We've got anticipation of the move. Oftentimes it's the opposite direction of the extreme move that's going to happen. So he's going in the opposite direction of that big jump up, getting lots of like mass distribution here as he pushes himself up into the air. And we're going to slow it down just a little bit in here, adding more frames in here so you get some good hang time. He's going to recoil into this position, and then he needs to anticipate the movement out and into, notice he's speeding up a little bit. That's your coming back to earth, your gravitational pull. Slow in, slow out is in reverse in this case. And you're going to punch that ground with the feet into the push of that movement, showing strong weight distribution, and then up into that rest pose again. Now even after that, I tend to create a look alive animation, which is just a little bit more movement in the recoil of that strong down pose. You might settle into this spot just a little bit before the animation is completely done. These are ideal animations for your cutscenes. This is that third type that I want you to try. You've got the mocap, you've got the looping animation that you keyed. You are going to put a pose to pose keyframed animation here together, and or straight ahead animation, pose to pose. And then of course we're going to go into the facial animation with the blend shapes. So have fun with this one. Certainly doesn't need to be the one that I'm showing you here, but certainly make sure that you're employing all of those 12 principles as much as possible. Make sure you get good strong arcs of emotion in there. Your spine, notice the head is leading the action, just as we spoke about. Always leading the action, first the eyes, then the head, then pushing up through there. He's looking down toward where he's going. This is a rotation on the head. Down, keeping his eye on that, up through there and back up. Now, these are just the basic moves of the animation. There's still a lot to do, such as adding the arms and making sure that head is always appearing to lead the movement, making sure that the secondary is on the feet and the hands. So lots to do. Animation does take a lot of time, so please make sure that you allocate time to get the best possible moves in your cutscene for your character. Let's go ahead and take a look at another one since we have a little time here. Try this one. This is, by the way, on the SAM model, which is available to you also. It's the standard SAM. This is the very, very low poly version of the animation proxy model. Welcome to use that as well. In this animation, it's generally the same as the one we just took a look at, but I want you to notice the difference in weight distribution. In the back flip, he's going to go back down, all the way down. He's going to kick up into the arc of motion is actually going in the opposite direction. And then as he hits that hang time, he's going to kick his feet over as quickly as he can to continue that momentum around, and then reach as quickly as he can for that ground in order to catch himself. And then notice that slight weight distribution, momentum in that forward direction. It's going to push him forward just a little bit and back up into that pose. Now, even though we try to do things very rapidly for a game, in the cutscenes we can do them as close to life as possible. So take your time, get your timing just right, make it feel good, make sure that you're playing it out with your VCR controls to make sure that the timing is what you want. This guy's going a little fast. I'll probably slow down his push. And certainly at his arms, he looks like he doesn't have any arms right now. But hopefully he'll develop into a nice animation that I can apply to a different character, completed character. Let's take a look at one more, talk through it. Let's maybe try this one. Alright, there's one here. There we go. One here that I want to show you all, that you don't have to stop with the one angle. It's really, really important in animation to get a really good pose, especially on those extreme poses, as much as possible. In 3D, we also need to make sure that that is strong pose in all directions, because the game camera, if we're encountering someone, we really don't know what direction we're coming to. We can control that a little bit better with the cutscene camera sequencer, but the intent of this is just to show you that there's a lot of action in that spine when you're trying to squash down a character. This character is working out the timing for getting that character down on his knees, But this is what I want you to see, is as he pushes himself up from this pose, he's got his entire body enacted in that. So he's in a rest pose about here, and then he wants to push himself up. So he's going to he's got his hands pushing against his knee. He's got that strong arc of motion happening in the back, his back arching up. Weight distribution on that forward leg, pushing him back and settling into that pose. Notice how he took a little step with that forward leg. That tends to give a little bit more realistic movement when you're keyframing. So take a look at it from the back. Look at that. Push that down. That's going to cause the spine to really give you an S shape back there, because it can actually anticipate that push up. Get quite low if we allow it to rotate in several different ways. So now we're going to go ahead and push up. What I also want you to notice is that you've got strong weight distribution in the hip, counterbalance in the shoulder, and then evening out in the head again. So when I push, that weight is being forced, or that position of the bone in the socket there is keeping that hip up, so it's going to drop down on the left hand side. The leg gives more spring there. This is a rigid socket to the location of the floor. It's not going to have any give. So as that character gets down further, you're going to see that rotation on the hip, counterbalance on the shoulder. Pushing up, however, the weight is redistributed, and so watch how that hip is now rotating in the opposite direction. The shoulder again balancing that out by rotating in the opposite direction. It's going to settle out. Even in there, you got weight distribution happening. Very important to get that spine as accurate as possible. Keep that character alive with movement for as long as you need. See how subtle that movement is? Just to keep it going is really important for looking alive. Alright, so later in the week, let's go ahead and meet, and I will take you through the process. The process for actually keying straight ahead animation is generally the same. You're going to start at the root. Your feet are already pinned to the floor, and you're going to work from the beginning of the animation forward. To get your time, remember that you can slide your keyframes around if need be by holding your shift key down and clicking on them, and then making sure that you, just zooming in here, that you grab the center arrows in order to move that key around. Excuse me. So I look forward to working with you at the end of the week to help you to perfect the animations that you've been working on for maximum show in your portfolio. Thank you for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video series.